Here's an insight that should bother anyone who works in total rewards. Only 29% of employees say they would repeat a behaviour if they were rewarded for it. Think about that. The entire point of a reward is to reinforce something, to get more of the behaviour you want. And fewer than a third of people say it actually changes what they do. So something is broken in the signal. Dr. B.J. Fogg's work tells us exactly what. In his research on behaviour design, Fogg argues that the emotion immediately following a behaviour is what encodes it in the brain. He calls it the shine moment. When you do something and genuinely feel seen for it, when the acknowledgement arrives and with specificity and warmth, that emotion anchors the behaviour. You want to do it again. A reward on its own removes the shine moment. The points land, the box is ticked, the behaviour was completed. But without the human piece, the specific, sincere moment of being seen and told why it mattered, there's no emotional encoding. The behaviour doesn't stick. It was a transaction, and transactions don't change people. And that's the tension at the heart of total rewards. Rewards in isolation are just compensation. Rewards paired with meaningful, timely, specific recognition become genuine behavioural reinforcement. The numbers are necessary, but they were never going to be sufficient. The thing that makes a reward land is whether a person felt seen. Welcome to A-Listed.
Welcome back to A-Listed, and we're delighted, Emma and I are delighted to welcome Alia O'Neill from Duck Creek Technologies into our studio. Welcome.
Thank you.
What the duck are you doing here?
I came for Recognition Next yesterday and it was with our product advisory council this morning, but got the opportunity to really join you guys on this podcast and share my experience and what we're doing at Duck Creek and get some insights about what else is happening in the world.
I love it. Tell me a little bit about what you do and what Duck Creek does.
Absolutely. So Duck Creek Technologies, which we've just rebranded, and so we just call ourselves Duck Creek now. We're based in Boston. We are a global software SaaS company. Our purpose is insurance-based software. Customers might not even recognize that they're using our interface because it might be helping them with a claim or helping them make a payment to their insurance company. So it's our software or something similar, and that's what we do. What I do is I lead our global total rewards team. So I have a team of 4 that is based here in both the United States and India. And our team handles all of compensation, benefits, recognition. We just recently took on recognition, so we are really looking and taking a deep dive of what we were doing, what was working, what wasn't working, how we want to kind of update, refresh, maybe try something different for our new fiscal year coming up in September.
Amazing. You mentioned global. How far around the world does Duck Creek work?
Duck Creek is in 9 countries. We are about 1,600 employees globally, and so we have about 800 in India, about 600 in the United States, and the other 200 are spread between, and I'll do these alphabetically because otherwise I'll forget.
What a show
Australia, Belgium, Canada, France, Poland, Portugal, and UK.
Amazing. You've got a lot of complexity in there when it comes to total rewards. How do you balance the sort of consistency, particularly with recognition, so everyone has a great experience, with the local nuances that come with a global organization?
Yes, so Duck Creek is the first global company I've worked with. So it's been a learning experience. I've been with Duck Creek for about 3.5 years. And so it's been one of those things, especially learning how we entered a lot of our global markets. A lot of our global markets were entered it through acquisition. They were not our very first one. That when we entered Poland almost 2 years ago now, we entered Poland as our very first standalone. We want to make sure that we're looking at things from a holistic point of view, whether it's we're looking at the bucket from a compensation standpoint or a benefit standpoint or a recognition, that we want to make sure that the experience and everybody is treated equitably. It might not always look equal or seem equal, but we try to make sure that everybody has an equitable experience.
Part of total rewards can feel transactional. There are transactions under that umbrella. But how do you make sure that rewards feel meaningful and not transactional?
And that's actually something that we're really working through right now. Is our reward program has started to feel a little bit more transactional as I came in and started doing a deep dive. Previously, I was helping the previous leader of this program with, I was administering the spot bonus program. So I was still very involved in what was happening from a reward standpoint. giving my feedback, my input when we were looking country to country, what's market competitive. And what I found is it is very transactional, and we did get some amazing feedback in our Voice of the Employee survey that we just got back, and we had over 2,000 comments, and a lot of them touched on recognition. We found that they have a misconception of what recognition is, so we're really even trying to change some of the semantics around it to appreciation. That we heard from our employees that they felt that our recognition is based around promotions and career growth and compensation increases, that it isn't feeling appreciated or valued for what they bring. So there was a transactional piece to that, some sort of reciprocity. And what we also saw in some of the comments was, if my work mattered, I would have gotten something for it. That sentiment came across more than once. And so it's one of those things that, okay, how do we make this feel more organic? How do we encourage our leaders to reward? And then coming on the tail end of that, where we saw that internal validation, I sat down with my Achievers customer success team and really sat down and did our business review for I'm like, walk me through it. Walk me through what's happening and let's see what's going on. And got the external validation that our program, it's there, it's getting the job done, but it's not necessarily having some of the long-lasting impacts that we want to have. We're seeing underutilized points. We're seeing leaders not giving recognition, some employees not getting recognitions for over 12 months. And so we want to make sure that everybody, as I said, has an equitable experience. And so it's helping and educating some of our leaders, as well as our employees. So my team, one of our big initiatives that we're planning to roll out with our new fiscal is having a multi-pronged playbook for different audiences. So number one, the HR administrative side. So our whole background team will know how the program works. They won't have any questions of why we do one thing versus another and what we should do. Then we have an employee playbook for how to give, how to receive, but also how to advocate for yourself if you feel like you are not getting recognized, or why didn't I get something, how to make that kind of, give them some guides and tips and tricks on advocating for yourself and encouraging our employees to have that courage and be bold to go and do that. And then also having a people manager playbook of how the program works, and that one's going to be geared more around behavior modification or behavior changes, and encourage them how to use the program, how to pick the right awards. With that, we've developed, custom GPTs to help our leaders. That's what I was chatting with someone out on the floor. We've created a GPT, and it's really, we loaded what our program is. It's there to help a leader that either is not feeling comfortable, doesn't know how, but also what's that decision matrix of, what award is this? Is this a simple thank you email? Is this a pop-up recognition in a meeting? Is this a social recognition without points? Is it a social recognition with points? Is it a spot bonus? It is a larger enterprise award. And then it helps you write a fun social recognition, tying it to the value you want to tie it to, making it feel meaningful and connected and not vague. And then it helps them write that. And that a couple weeks ago, while we were at an offsite with other leaders, I listened to one of our leaders from finance say, this is how I'm using Copilot, and I gather all my Teams messages and my Outlook, and I ask it to help me write a recognition based on that. I was like, huh. So I pulled her aside later that evening, and I said, so do you know we have a GPT that will help you do that? She goes, I had no idea. And I said, so what if I move that out of ChatGPT and into Copilot, have my back output, but use all of your input to do that? And she goes, when is it going to be available, and can I be a tester?
Yeah, that's amazing.
I love that. One of the pieces that's often missing from behavior change is that prompt. So the idea of nudging somebody, you don't want to necessarily get to a point where it's scheduled into your calendar, although that does help some people. But if we can just nudge people to take a moment to reflect on the great things that they saw throughout the week.
Absolutely.
And if you're using AI to do that, that's looking through your Teams messages, your meetings, maybe even your meeting notes, to maybe call out some areas where you might want to recognize. I think it's such a great way to overcome that barrier.
I think it is too. And in our company, it's a little bit easier for us to do that that workload and be encouraged to take those risks when it comes to that. Obviously, you want to do that within a safe space. When it comes to AI, we are a ChatGPT enterprise company, so everything on our interface is protected inside of our company. So we definitely want to make sure that we're being compliant around guardrails with that. But it's something that our company encourages because that's our model as well. AI is part of our product line, and so it's not just what we're putting out from our product standpoint. It's also we're being encouraged as employees to embrace it. As well, to become more efficient, better, faster, stronger.
You talked earlier about there being some misunderstanding about what recognition is, when to use reward. Can you give us a gander? That's the second duck pun of this broadcast. Can you give us a gander at what some of your new vocabulary might be?
Absolutely. So recently we launched an initiative called Flying Together. And for those not in the know, we're joking. We love our duck puns and our bird puns at Duck Creek.
Yeah.
So we have Flying Together, and it's an initiative. We are a fully remote company. And like I said, we're in 9 countries with 1,600 employees. And so we're not always in the same spot. I was lucky enough to be, like I said, at an offsite a couple weeks ago. A few weeks before that, I was at our company conference down in Florida and got to spend time with people on my own team and other teams and see more about what our product lines are coming up and updating. But we refer to those opportunities now as nests. And so those are our opportunities to come together and have a sense of community, but also get the working sessions done and really have those opportunities to connect. We don't have a return to office, and that's not necessarily part of our strategy. But we do encourage our employees to get together, to have those moments that matter, to be in the office if they, that is encouraged, to have those collaboration moments. And it's not something that, I don't live near a nest. I work in my remote nest in my office in my home in the Midwest. So the nearest nest for me would either be going to my headquarters in Boston or to Columbia, South Carolina. And those, I visit those. I was in South Carolina a couple weeks ago. I'll be in Boston in August and September for various meetings. And so we want to make sure and encourage our employees to have those opportunities because it is important. And I was chatting with somebody yesterday and I said, 20 years ago, when I was first starting in my career, I couldn't have imagined being fully remote. But I'm like, that's one of those opportunities that I see we might have lost a little something through the pandemic for those folks, because as we talk about AI and people being very concerned about roles being available, I said, I said some roles you could see it, but where I see the AI concern and where recognition and the connection piece comes is so important is through that loss of that entry level, because as the leaders leave, you're not going to have anybody to take those spots. But so I really do value the opportunity for us to really have the flying together and have the different modes and methods that we're talking about, whether it's through Duckignize, our Achievers platform is Duckignize, whether it's through that or through our Quick Quacks company kind of,
I love it.
Our internal teams channel for everybody to just kind of post as they need to, what's going on, different pictures of communing and getting together in their nests. So it's one of those opportunities that we are really encouraging our employees, because we recognize when we are together, it's great and we have those opportunities, but then you go home or you go back to your office and you don't see those folks. And it is so important for us to flock together.
Amazing. I think one of the great things when you're working remotely and perhaps disconnected physically from your teammates is the recognition newsfeed. I feel like it's the best newsfeed you'll read all day, because it's full of those positive news stories from around the business. Part of that, though, is the GIF selection. How many duck GIFs do you see on your newsfeed?
We see some, not as many as you'd think. Okay. There are a couple.
Wow.
There are a few. There are select things that I've had on mine that I'm like, okay, you went and found some obscure, like around compensation planning, since I lead that. I do get like the Donald Duck doing the bucks.
Yeah.
Of course.
Around that time. So I do get that quite a bit. And you start to see people's personality and what's important to
Yes.
them through those gifts.
Yes.
And so I love it that I would never have thought to put something like that. Okay. I always have to play that, but that other side, I'm like, okay, is this appropriate or not?
That's right.
I'm like, maybe I just send this to them individually and not put it out for everybody.
Yeah,
So.
that's funny. I think one of the big conversations, you're talking about it as a remote-only organization, is where work gets done. Another is how much we get paid for the work that we do. AWI did an interesting study about 2 years ago where we asked the question, which job would you prefer? Would you prefer a job where every day you felt seen, valued, and appreciated? Or would you prefer a job where you were paid 30% more, but those feelings of appreciation were absent? And 75% of the people said, I want praise rather than the pay raise. And yet, if I offered you a pay raise right now, you'd take it. So how do leaders, how can leaders talk about compensation in a way that builds trust and belonging?
I can say I left my last company because the money was there. That was great. They gave me lots of cool projects, but I felt undervalued and taken advantage of. So I was willing to almost take a step back. I was managing and leading 6 different people programs. I came to Duck Creek just to do compensation. And I didn't take a back step in pay, but I took a lateral move because I needed a break. I needed to feel valued. I needed to feel that. And so that was, and it's not a knock on that company. I think they're an amazing company that I left. It just wasn't the right spot for me anymore. I think it's very attuned to having leaders understand what motivates their people from a personal standpoint. So that does mean you have to build a connection to them. You do have to understand where they're coming from and meet them where they're at. So for me, praise is it. If I'm not feeling that, if I'm not feeling the love, I'm kind of out. And, understanding where people are coming from. Like, I know some people don't like words of affirmation. I have one that she intentionally does not. She doesn't want her birthday on or her anniversary unrecognized. And so I have it on my calendar. I'm like, okay, I send you your birthday flowers. I still do those things for me, but it's just not public for her because she doesn't feel good. So I really want to honor that with our employees and meet them where they're at. And so that's part of, as I'm looking at this People Manager Playbook, giving them those tips and tricks of how to meet your people where they're at, understanding where they're at, because it's not all about money. If it was all about money, we could just throw a big bucket of money at people and they would never leave. That's not the way it works. Because there have been things in past lives when my husband took a big increase and I said, hope money made you happy because you've just priced yourself out of the market. And the money was good for about 6 weeks. And then he was in the exact same headspace he was in before. And I said, this is what it is. I hope it makes you happy. So in this day of pay transparency, I think that we have to have the trust with our employees to create a safe space for them to be able to feel like they are valued, they're recognized. And if they are not, they're not going to be retaliated against, or they're not going to be held back because they ask a question regarding where's my pay range. And when we first rolled out our pay transparency policy, I had some leaders that would ask, do I have to do this? Yep. It's the law. Yep, we're going to do it. And they're used to it. They understand we post our pay ranges. We had to bring the employees that were below those pay ranges up. So we, again, honored that trust of where they were. We accelerated our plan to get people where they should have or could have been. And we got them ahead of the pay transparency piece. And so we want to make sure that we are offering not just being compliant with the law, but we're acting in good faith and being a good steward to our employees.
Yes.
It's not just about doing what's right because you're told to do what's right. It's doing what's right because you should.
So much of what you've said is dependent on leadership capability, whether it's recognizing, it's rewarding, it's having really effective pay transparency conversations. How do you upskill your leaders and make sure that they're really equipped to do those things?
So education and one-on-one conversations. Education for me is where it starts. So when we rolled out our pay transparency policy, when we rolled out compensation 101, it's having those conversations. They're difficult conversations, and every company I've worked with, it doesn't matter which one, it's an uncomfortable conversation no matter what. And just getting the point across of having a compensation conversation is no longer once a year. It is a daily conversation that you're having with your employee, whether it's a compensation conversation around their benefits, around their time off, around their actual pay, around their recognition. It is all a conversation about what that person is feeling, and it might be called a compensation conversation, but it is a total rewards employee experience conversation. And it is one of those things that if a leader doesn't feel comfortable, that's why we're trying to give them the tools, whether it's an AI chat GPT or a playbook to give you tips and tricks, or me doing a one-on-one coaching session to walk you through the issue that you have. It is all about education and feeling at a comfort level and not avoiding the conversation just because it is uncomfortable. It's not comfortable from an employee standpoint. It's not comfortable from a manager standpoint to say, why didn't I get on this team? Why can't I do that project? Or why can't I get paid more? Or why can't we do this? Or I want to be promoted. Am I ready to be promoted now? This is why XYZ I feel I should be. Any of those conversations, and I think having really open trust and a safe space, whether it's psychological safety, whether it's feeling valued and that you feel like your job's in a safe space, because in this day and age of reduction in forces, not everybody feels in that safe space. We really want to offer that to our employees to make sure that everybody, again, has that equitable experience and a good experience. We want to, we feel that we are an employer of choice, and we want to make sure that our employees feel that as well.
You talked about AI a little earlier, and you talked about it's already embedded in your product. And I'm curious about how you're thinking about AI and how it can create practical value for HR or for your total rewards team.
Absolutely. So, I say this as I've turned into one of our leaders on our HR team of doing that. And recently I'm helping draft and develop our AI for HR roadmap.
Cool.
It's an opportunity for us to, again, be better, faster, stronger. It's not necessarily going to replace our roles, but it's there to be a tool for us to be able to answer those questions quicker, more consistent, that we can focus on the bigger work, have those conversations, be there to be coaches and better business partners. So really that's what the tool is there for. And I'm lucky enough that I will be giving a session for, do a quick shout out for anybody that's in the Boston area and going to the World at Work Boston Summit
great.
in August. I will be talking about
Amazing.
an AI session.
You're going to be famous.
About doing custom GPTs for HR professionals in AI and how it's utilizing and benefiting us. I was joking with some of the people. I'm like, yep, you're going to be on stage with me. I was talking to my head of our head of HR, and I said I would like you to be up there 5-10 minutes, just give your spiel as a business user of the GPTs that we do. It's not just me creating to create. It's how you're utilizing the tool, and that we've given you the power to have us be your coach just in a machine. And so I think that it is a powerful tool, and I encourage, we use it across the board for so many different things. And when we're talking about rewards, we have one actually for reasonable accommodations. We have, like I said, 9 countries. I'm good, but I don't know every regulation in Canada, Belgium, France. And then in France, we have our Works Council and other things happening as well. So I'm good, but I'm not that good. And my team as well. But, it was coming up in a conversation, and I was talking to my benefits lead, and I said, have we ever thought about making a GPT for this? She goes, I have no idea what you just said. I said, okay. So why don't we'll put it in a working session, we'll build it. And I showed her how to build and how to draft instructions on the back end. And we built a reasonable accommodation recommendations, AI ChatGPT for our team. And it's one of those things of, I have an employee in India, they get migraines. Obviously, we work on computers all day. So they get migraines. This is what the doctor recommends. Can we help make can you give me a suggestion? It'll repeat the issue. It'll tell a recommendation. And it'll give you the regulations and the compliance piece for that specific country, as well as potential budget cost impacts.
Great.
That we might have to do to help accommodate that person, whether it's like a specialty mouse or a specialty chair, if they need ergonomic help. The use cases are so varied and wide.
Yeah.
And it's just that conversation to come up with what the solution could have been, that was literally like a 45-minute conversation that we pared down to less than 2 minutes to get that output.
Yeah.
If we can do that with some of those, not that they're not necessarily, but some of those low value outputs to be focused on some of the more high value strategic pieces, or having those relationship building conversations to make sure that we're enabling our leaders or educating, that I think that we just have, it's kind of a brave new world.
What role do your values play in creating GPTs?
What they do is it encourages people to add value. That's one of our main values, is adding value. But then as we've gotten in our rally quack with our...
For keeping score at home.
It is, our every quarter we're getting new goals from what our strategic values are. And so, encouraging people to align to, whether it's they're aligning to our core values or our competencies, or if it's our rally quack that is ever changing as the company grows and continues to push forward, that we want to make sure that all of our employees feel valued. And we have an internal podcast that focuses strictly around AI. And it's about sharing best practices about what's happening within the company. We also have communities of practice, both a technical and a quantifiable. And they had me get on, talk about custom GPTs. And I had some people reach out and they're like, I thought this was only for the engineering and technology and product teams. I had no idea that other people in other groups like my group were doing this yet. And I said, oh yeah. And they're like, can you walk me through it again, just me? And I said, sure. Let's put some time on my calendar and we'll go through it. And they're like, this encouraged me to do this. And can you look at this? I said, absolutely. So I think that that's one of the biggest part is making things public and visual for employees to see what other people are doing, and it encourages them and gives them, again, that safe space and that kind of free opportunity to build their own skill sets and build their own opportunities inside of it. And I think that is, from a recognition standpoint, but also from a career growth standpoint, it's an amazing opportunity to allow our people to just develop this muscle that we've never had the opportunity to have.
I think as you're talking about this, the way AI shows up at Duck Creek reminds me of 15 to 20 years ago inside enterprise organizations, as collaboration tools were entering the enterprise for the first time. And, leadership were really, really worried about these tools, the sort of social tools that employees were using, because they thought it would be a big time suck. And they thought employees would be using it like we do at home to check out people we went to high school with or whatever it happened to be. But the use case was actually that employees were using these tools for discovery.
Absolutely.
And that's everything you're talking about really reminds me of discovery.
Yeah, so whether it's through quick quacks or whether it's, these different channels or opportunities that we have, we have these opportunities for this, but really what we've seen is the social part of those, where people are having concerns. We are seeing it more through the Duck Ignites. We're seeing that social piece, seeing what's going on. As you said, it's one of the most interesting feeds you're going to see all day. It's through Microsoft Viva Engage. It's, we're seeing the social piece develop into the true social lanes, and then the other spots, the Teams channel of quick quacks, the what the flock, what the rally quack, the flock togethers, the flying togethers, all of them. We're seeing those as really the opportunity to share and best practices and have those communities of practice about what we're doing, and it gives the employee a free space to really think of what could I do. But then it gives the other employees the opportunity to share what they've done and put them in a much more exposed light that offers them really amazing opportunities for recognition. And I've seen so many people that were brave enough to be in those community of practices and show, and then often shocked if I don't see at least 5 recognitions on Duck Ignites of, you did an amazing job, or boosts to other
Yeah.
people's things. So it's one of those things that it just feeds the environment and it feeds the energy around these new programs, because it's so easy. It was interesting this morning when somebody was talking about AI, and they're like, well, I feel it's kind of one of those buzzy things. And it is. It's become, the new World Wide Web that it was, way back when. And it's become that new buzzword, but it is one of those things that it offers people just that opportunity to build things that they'd never even thought they could, or why would they? And it's funny, when I was first getting into the AI space and working with it, my mom, she's like, so you use it for good? I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not all ransom ads, Mom.
That's right. That's right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I use it every day. And at that point, I was only using it for like emails and base level analysis. And now I use it to help me build training, to help me build decks for leaders, put it in my own tone. And I was having a conversation with a leader about equity. I said, build me a 4-point elevator pitch for a layperson not in compensation on our equity. And it did. And he's like, nope, this is exactly what I need. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Before we wrap up, I'd love to get your perspective on one more thing. Scott Landers, our CEO, spoke at Recognition Next about the change management cycle, where it used to be 3 to 5 years, and we're now in a place where that change management is happening every 3 to 5 months. If you could take a punt on what total rewards looks like in the future, what do you think is one change that total rewards leaders need to make to ensure that they are future ready?
Before we get into some things that could change, I think one of the biggest parts of that for me, because I've worked in change management now for years, and for me, it's not necessarily about the word change management, it's about change acceptance. I'm like, we can change things all we want, but if our employees are not willing to accept and do those changes, is it going to be successful? So for me, it's always the biggest thing about how do we encourage change acceptance rather than, okay, we're going to make a change. That's us forcing our decision on you. It's how do we gather that buy-in and feedback, not just from our leaders, but from everybody. So I think that is one of the biggest things. And when we're talking about how fast things are moving from a compensation standpoint, I've gotten so used to everything's moving so fast and we got to keep up with it. We're all busy. I have it on my calendar every Friday morning for half an hour. I go into Duckignize, I sign cards, I write things for my team, for other team members every Friday. And I get busy too. But it's one of those things that if I don't build it in time into my calendar, I'm not going to be able to do it, or I'll forget to do it because until I see something amazing and I'm like, there's all this great work happening, whether it's my team or other teams, and I want to make sure that I'm doing that. So that's, some of the tips and tricks that I give other leaders is the world's changing fast, and we are telling our employees to keep up from a work standpoint. You need to keep up from a people standpoint. Otherwise, if they don't feel valued, they're going to go somewhere else where they do. And that's a big part of it because we can put together lovely benefits packages and compensation packages and equity, but if they don't feel a connection to the company, they're not going to stay. I was on a conversation a few weeks ago with a company, and they asked, what's been the most impactful appreciation or recognition moment you've had? And I said, that's an interesting question. And I'm like, and I don't remember a particular moment, but I remember the company that made me feel the best.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was an amazing company, and I loved it. And it wasn't one that you would think of. It was a sovereign Indian tribe. They were an amazing company to work for. I was so sad when I had to move, and my husband's job took us from Dallas area to Houston, so I had to leave that company. But I'm like, everything they did, and I'm like, to this day, I know that company's mission, and I left them in 2012. 15 years later, I could tell you that mission and remember it. And I'm like, that is what's so important. And I want our leaders to feel that, and I want our employees to feel that. It's not necessarily about the recognition, it's about the feeling and the emotional connection that they have to our company, and that's what we want.
Well, I think your mom would be very proud that you're using these tools for Goose. For good. For good.
So is that 11?
You're using them for good. My love language is quality time. And so I want to thank you for spending time with Emma and I want to thank you for being on A-Listed.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This has been great.
Welcome back to A-Listed. We had the wonderful Alia O'Neill from Duck Creek Technologies on the show, and it makes me think of this, which is duck, 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 goose.
You're definitely the goose.
Oh, okay, great.
Such a great conversation and so fun as well. I loved the conversation about how Alia is leaning into AI and the way they're using chat GPTs and rolling that through the organization to empower everyone in the organization to have access to these things. So I actually thought I would do the same straight after recording our episode. And I asked AI for some feedback on our performance, David.
Our performance.
Yes. Yeah, so I've got some constructive feedback for us. Will we miss?
And this is us, not...
Yeah, just this is us. This is not Alia.
Okay, yeah.
Alia was
I was
great.
worried it was me alone, but okay.
No, it's us.
Okay. How do we do?
So, yeah, we've got some constructive feedback. So Alia described entering markets and letting things settle before integrating systems and culture and all of that. Neither one of us said that they were just getting their ducks in a row.
Oh, boy.
Missed opportunity. There was another, she was talking a bit about, pockets of their organisation where they've got some work to do when it comes to recognition. Things like underutilised points or some employees maybe even going 12 months without receiving recognition. And that was an opportunity to say recognition had flown the coop. It's my AI usage for this morning. It was good use of my time, right?
It's a tough room. She said some serious things too.
She did.
And one of the things you and I were talking earlier about, she drew a distinction around change. And what was the distinction?
She talked about change management actually being reframed as change acceptance. And I love that because change management feels like something that happens to you.
Yes.
Whereas change acceptance is, I want to bring you along on the journey. And this change is only going to happen if we all get on board. So I like that way of bringing, at a time when employees are feeling so uncertain and experiencing so much change after change after change, that idea of just accepting it.
Yeah.
It brings a little bit of calmness to the conversation.
It does. And Gartner's done some research about this. And last year they pointed to one of the most important things that managers can do is they can embed change into the everyday workflow so that it becomes part of the routine. And that sounds a lot like getting your arms around the problem or the opportunity in a way that you can control too. I like that.
Yeah, that planning for change becomes part of how we do things around here. So essentially part of culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, which it kind of has to.
It has to, because otherwise, don't you think you're living in denial?
Yeah.
Because change is the only constant,
That's
really.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What else did she say that was smart?
There was many things. We don't have time to dissect them all, but she talked about something that I think is very common in a lot of organizations, particularly as they're starting on a recognition journey. And that was employee sentiment around, well, if my work mattered, I would have gotten something for it. So that the separation of recognition and performance, or recognition and compensation, is that they're not the same thing. And helping employees understand the distinction of what recognition is and what it isn't. That being recognized 10 times throughout the year does not entitle you necessarily to a pay rise or a promotion, that cycle is actually different. That recognition can inform feedback and performance and growth and all of that, but it is not the answer.
I think that's particularly important when someone is not performing, and the idea that she talked a little bit about this as well, that just because someone is in that meaty part of the curve, or they're maybe not performing to expectations, does not mean they're not worthy of recognition. And in fact, performance improvement plans actually are ways to remediate performance so that someone remains in the business, and maybe there's no other time where recognition matters as much.
100%. The 2026 State of Recognition report, we actually asked some questions around that and found that employees who are underperforming are actually 6 times less likely to receive recognition. And that's actually when they need it most. If we're going to correct that performance and have people back on the right track, we need to let them know that their effort is noticed, that it is not necessarily about the outcome, but that effort and improvement and all of that is noticed. And sometimes that's not seen by the leaders, and so peer recognition is key to that as well.
So we did some research into awards programs as well, and one of the things we found with awards programs, annual awards programs in particular, was that employees felt it was more often than not the same people winning the awards, which you would imagine would have an impact on their performance day to day, to feel that you can never be on top. But then we also asked employees, what did they want? And the number one thing they said they wanted was more frequent recognition for the impact that they're having in their role. Yeah. So I think it's interesting that, that the words we use matter, and to draw those distinctions, because recognition has a lot to do with performance, but they are not one and the same.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, lots to unpack. A great guest. Would love to have her back. Thank you for this conversation. Yeah. This episode was way more than it was quacked up to be. And with that, thank you for joining us on another episode of A-Listed, where we discuss the science and the stories of appreciation at work.